Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, to the Butterfly Monkey Effect. Hopefully you guys are all caught up. So far 10 videos, and this is going to be the 11th and the last. This book is only about 178 pages, give or take. The rest of up to 300, 298 is basically, they just copied the same page over and over. Like, there's a page that was going 67, 68, 67, 68, 67. They did it like for 10 pages worth easy. But for the most part, they're all the court cases, so the opinions and so forth. So what I'm going to do is when I make videos on those specific court cases like Zemo or Dulles or you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna come back here and grab whatever information that's not in the court case themselves. So that's how I'll do that. With this one right here, it's going to be the last part where it's the final conclusions, right? Conclusions respecting federal control of the citizen's right to a passport. So this is after everything, all that we have read, all of the 10 videos. This is right here. This is the bullet points. So hopefully we all see what they have done, how it has affected, and how you can overcome the passport denials and restrictions and so forth from them. All right, so the first one, A citizen has a constitutional right of personal liberty, which includes the right of locomotion, i.e. to travel, which is a given, right? B, the Secretary of State has a right to exercise official discretion in the issuance of passports. True, but of course restricted, right? The Constitution does that. C, neither of these rights is absolute. So they're talking about your right to travel and his power of discretion, right? Neither of these rights is absolute, nor can they be exercised arbitrarily by the citizen or the secretary. So what did they just say? Right? You could be restricted, of course, in times of war and so forth like that, and they are supposed to be able to only restrict you pertaining to times of war or other national security interests and stuff, not just because they want to. Prior to 1914, these rights did not come into conflict, hence the lack of litigation. E, with the growth of foreign passport restrictions, a passport has become a necessity to the exercise of the citizen's right to travel in peacetime. In a war or emergency situation, the federal government may, through the use of its war powers, restrict the citizen's right to a passport. You understand how they said this, right? Restrict the citizen's right to a passport, not restrict the citizen's right to travel, even though it does, but it does through the passport. G, such war restrictions on the citizen's right to a passport must be exercised with due regard to the due process provisions of the Fifth Amendment, preserving balance between the exigencies of the war and the citizen's constitutional right. So this right here is in context of war. H, peacetime regulation of the citizen's liberty or right to travel, i.e. to a passport, must be in pursuance of the law-making functions of Congress with standards established adequate to pass scrutiny by the accepted test and with due regard to the citizen's constitutional rights. So this is big right here. It just, you have to fill in, you have to put in the substance from this context of what they're stating, meaning the specific issues that you're dealing with. I, the broad power of the Secretary to issue passports under the Act of 1926, which today, of course, is the same, 22 U.S.C. 211A, though discretionary, has been construed generally to authorize refusal of a passport only when the applicant is not a citizen or person owing allegiance to the United States or is engaging in criminal or unlawful behavior. So this right here is a given, right? And these are based on questions that you give them in the application. And then the engaging in criminal conduct, that's of course based on some investigation, things that they already know about you. which they will discover if you give them the social security number, right? If you are required to give it to them. J, Congress did not, by this act of 1952, which is 8 U.S.C. 1185, give the Secretary unbridled discretion to withhold a passport from a citizen for any substantive reason the Secretary may choose. But even though I think 1185 deals with communist stuff, I think I got to recheck it. Neither sections 211A or 1185 delegated the Secretary authority to withhold passports from a citizen because of his beliefs or associations. Any act which purported to do so would give rise to grave constitutional questions. So for me, pertaining to me, right, with no social security number, right, what would this mean? How can I use this? What I would use is they're forcing me to associate with an agency of the federal government. Tying a number, right, that's created from the Social Security with the Internal Revenue Code and binding it with the Secretary of State for a passport purpose. They're forcing association. Whether that works or not, I don't know. I'm going to make the best argument I can and see what happens, right? Because that's a First Amendment violation. That would fall under that category, not under due process and so forth. L, a provision such as Section 6 of the Subversive Activities Control Act of 1950, which is 50 U.S.C. 785. So this is the communist one. I thought it was 1185. Which provides that when a communist organization is registered or under final order to register thereunder, it shall be unlawful under penalty of fine or imprisonment for any member with knowledge or notice thereof to apply for or use a passport is unconstitutional on its face. Just on its face, they're saying, right? For it to broadly and indiscriminately transgresses the liberty guaranteed by the Fifth Amendment. Its sweep applies to every member of a communist action or communist front organization, whether or not he believes or knows that he is associated with such an organization, or that the organization seeks to further the aims of world communism. It creates an irrebuttable presumption that all members of communist organizations will engage in activities endangering our security if given passports. Congress could have chosen a less drastic means of achieving the national security objective without such sweeping abridgment of liberty. And that applies to, like, well, not really, because in Kent, right, it's specifically with dealing with beliefs or an association, or with a belief, not really association, right? But here they're talking about specifically an association with these organizations, right? They're saying it's unconstitutional just on its face because it's too broad. It's an association. It's who you want to hang out with. Unless they're doing something illegal or their purpose is for something to do illegal to subvert, the Constitution or this government. And they're restricted by that. M, where diplomatic relations with Cuba have been broken, the Act of 1926 grants authority to the Secretary through the Executive to refuse validation of passports for Cuban travel. Since the area is foreign affairs where the Executive has broad constitutional authority. The Act of 1926, however, does not grant the Secretary completely unrestricted freedom of action, as it authorizes only those passport restrictions which it could fairly be argued were adopted by Congress in light of prior administrative practice. The fact that liberty cannot be inhibited without due process of law does not mean that it can under no circumstances be inhibited. So they basically said, yeah, they're going to give you your due process of law, but you still might get screwed afterward. It's just that you were treated fairly in court and your reasons and your arguments were heard. Adjudication of each and constitution of the adjudication of the reach and constitutionality of the Act of 1952 8 U.S.C. 1185 as applied to travel in violation of an area restriction must await a concrete factual stipulation. Note Supreme Court grant of certiorari in Travis versus the United States Supra, which is based on this section, which don't really deal with me, but I'll probably end up reading that court case. And that's it. Like, that's literally what they're showing in terms of the conclusions that they have came up with by the year of 1966. Now, what could have been added to this list since then? What things have happened, right, with terrorism and all that other stuff, right? You got the Patriot Act, 9/11, you know, among others. I haven't checked. I haven't really seen anything outside of just expanding these things here into a different category, like terrorism and 9/11 outcomes. The next thing is the last thing, and this is just going to be the appendix portion, right? This right here should be articles that you should want to look up, right? Look at it. I'm not going to read them all because some of them, of course, you know, just deal with, like, you know, restrictions from the place or your affiliation, communist, you know what I'm saying? Things like that, right? Well, things that we already discussed, we already see the outcome and stuff, right? So I just want more detail in terms of due process and, you know, stuff like that. So it's like, that's what I highlighted here, right? So constitutional law, passports, denial of a passport must conform to standards of due process. So for me, no doubt, I want to be using this. I want to look up this Minnesota Law Review right here. And I'm guessing that's May of 1956. I tried to look up one already, and I couldn't find it. It is, I think it's on the next page. This one right here, WNML Law Review. I searched. I finally found their actual website. It was like William and Mary Law Review, for whatever that means. It's a university, and man, they only go up to 1961. And I need 1959. So I couldn't use, you know what I'm saying, outside of contacting them or filing for a subscription, you know, I don't know. But nonetheless, the library is almost a great source to go find that. So I have had no issues finding law journals, especially older ones. Maybe the newer ones, they might not be printed, right? And you'll find them online, right? Westlaw or whatever, but nonetheless, the books are there, especially if you have a library that's large, that has a large library. Constitutional law, procedural due process. So one of them, you got two effects, right? You got substantial due process and procedural due process, right? One is, of course, procedure, right? You're not being treated fairly, and the other one is the restriction of a fundamental right and so forth. But that's a court case that, you know, should be read. And then Wayne Law Review, spring of 56. Freedom of movement, passport puzzle. I don't really know what that means, but I'm going to read that court case. University of Chicago Law Review. There's a chance I might have some of these because I have law reviews already. The books, actually, for certain years, especially but it mainly deals with, of course, trust law stuff. But nonetheless, it's within this time frame. Some of them are within this time frame. I might get lucky, you know. At the brink of the Constitution, I don't know what that means. I don't know what this is. Geo Law Journal. Beliefs, associations, and passports. Recent cases and proposed legislation. Washington Law Review. Don't know what the Geo means. I should look at the front of this book to see what they have for abbreviations. I haven't looked. Like this one, I'll probably highlight. Authority of the Secretary to determine standards for issuance of passports. Fordham Law Review. This is how my library grows. This is how your library is supposed to grow. Now, I could show you, after doing this, I'll show you PDFs, like my PDF files of law journals and so forth, just on trust law stuff. So, yeah, same thing. That's a communist one. Constitutional law, discretionary power of the Secretary to deny passports. Right, but of course, this case, you already know, it restricts it. and then North Carolina Law Review. Like these for sure I gotta get. These denial of passports for, on due process and the discretionary, the restrictions on their discretionary power. Those two go hand in hand. Oops. Constitutional law, freedom of travel, inability of secretary to withhold passports because of beliefs and associations. Constitutional law, passport refusal, right to travel, right? Kent is almost in almost all these. But it's the law journals that I want. Personal, civil, and political rights. Secretary of State does not have authority to deny passports to citizens because of their beliefs. So there's another one. And it goes on from here. Limitation upon Secretary of State in his discretionary power over passports. So this one is going to be good right here. 78 Supreme Court 1113. I don't know what this is. Well, you know what? That's Kent versus Dulles with the Supreme Court version, right? And Syracuse Law Review. So this one I need. Passport denial and freedom to travel. And this is the one I was trying to look up. William and Mary Law Review. Right to travel. C. Fay Natural Law something. Right to travel and due process. Strict construction of statute restrictions. Restricting such right. Invalidity of regulations denying passports to communists and aiders of communist causes. Non-communist affidavit requirement invalid, right? They're forcing them to try to make a thing, which is they're trying to do with me too, right? Every response that I got from the Secretary of State for the Social Security number was, hey, fill out this affidavit that you were never issued one. I don't need to fill that out. I'm not saying I wasn't issued one. I'm saying that I'm not required to give you one based on the statute that is asking for it. That's the difference. And maybe this one too. Right to travel considered in light of executive, legislative, and judicial determinations to date. This is probably going to be a good one. Right to travel versus area restrictions, unanswered questions in the recent passport cases. I'll probably look at this one too. I got to make a copy of this and then take it with me to the library when I go. Another one for Wyoming. These are going to be court cases though coming up. So, right to travel next. All right. So Flynn versus Rusk, right? And they give you a law journal for that. For University of Illinois. These same thing cases. These cases I'm going to read. So Apothiker, right? I don't know about Flynn versus Rusk. I haven't even. They really didn't mention this case in this thing. Will I read it? Fuck it. You know what I'm saying? It is, yeah. I might as well. And then they get more cases. So, but they're all cases and then put out in law reviews. So to me, these law reviews should be essential. McGeewan versus Rusk, all these court cases, all these. I'm going to be getting all these. Future of American passports as restrictions on travel. So that's something, you want to read. They understand that this is a course up to 1966. So this section is between 65 and 66, not even a year. It's more like 8 months. Right? And this one right here is 64 to 65, 62 to 63, and then whatever this was in the beginning. But with that, that's it right there. Like I said, the appendix, the rest, this is the court case, right? This is one of them right here. This one is not messed up. I might actually read this one instead of going to like court listener. So we'll see. I'll probably go back and forth still. But man, like I said, you guys want to grow your law your own library. There's no way around that. So it's like to show you just a bit, right? Look at this is for business trust, or this is trust law period. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have these, man. And I could tell you, I literally read every last one of these right here because almost all of them are, a few pages to maybe 20 pages in total. This is actually a court case, not a law review. You know what I'm saying? There's more for specifically on business trust. More detailed, I guess, that's why I put them there. And that's not the only shit. I think I got more law reviews over here. Actually, I got law reviews specifically on their authors. of trust law. So you know what I'm saying? Like Scott, I got his own law review section. This is a given. You ain't advancing without something like this. So I don't know what to tell people. But with that, thanks for watching, and hope you look forward to the next few cases that I'm going to be reading. I think it's going to be like 3. So this whole little topic on passports is going to be a total of probably 11, 14, maybe 15 videos in total. So it's a couple hours for sure, but it is what it is. It's either you read it or I read it to you. Can't make it easier than that. So thanks again, and please like and subscribe, and join my TikTok, join my Telegram, and share. All right. Have a good one, guys.